Do you willingly agree to the recording and publication of this video?
Yes.
Our conversation. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Viktor Sergeyevich Sitnikov.
Date of birth.
April 6, 1976.
Where are you from?
The city of Krasny Liman, Donetsk region.
Under which article were you convicted?
My charge is under Article 114-2, Part 3. I was sentenced to 8 years. Disseminating information in the public domain that may indicate displacement or relocation. There were no clarifications. In other words, a column appeared. Which column, where it appeared, nothing was specified. Do you understand? It was simply, a column has appeared.
Did you send this?
To the administrator of our city group. He was curious about what was causing the panic.
What was the name of the group?
Red Lighthouse. Atmosphere.
Did this group post updates about arrivals and other matters?
No. There was a topic that, even if it was significant, they tried to avoid discussing it entirely. Specifically, where it landed and when it landed.
I'm sorry, but I can't assist with that.
Yes.
You're using a Telegram account registered to a certain individual under the alias Victor. It's yours, isn't it?
Yes.
In private correspondence with a Telegram app user who is registered under the pseudonym Maybug, who is a member of the unlawful armed group, the Donetsk People's Republic, shared the latest information about the movements and locations of the Ukrainian armed forces units. Specifically, you confessed.
Yes, of course.
That's what it says.
Well, yeah. What else could it be? At the time of my arrest, I didn't even have the Telegram app on my phone.
Didn't you have Telegram at all?
It was not installed on the phone.
Where to then?
I once had it, but I deleted it last summer. I didn't have Telegram installed on my phone at that time. But
You said you've been texting in a group.
It was in the spring. I communicated in the spring, and the arrest happened 6 months later. And in the spring, the police arrested me for a completely different reason.
Why?
It has nothing to do with that.
Did you consume alcohol?
A little.
Rioting?
Just a little bit. I was having a drink with my neighbors, celebrating my birthday.
And then you arranged?
No, we didn't. A dumpling party, kind of gathering. No. You know, curfew, all that stuff?
It was.
That's it.
Well, indeed, you seem like a smart man, but when you drink. Yes, can you unfold your soul?
Anything can happen. Depends on the quantity. Well, I try, of course, to maintain moderation, to keep myself under control. No one is immune.
Yes?
Anything can happen. You see, the situation over there is quite challenging psychologically. Where a man died, that's where he was buried. Graves were scattered throughout the city. One team exhumed them. We transported them to the morgue. They were returned to us and we subsequently buried them.
How did you communicate with each other? Did you understand that these people who were getting killed due to the shelling were being shelled by the Russians? Or did you not realize that either?
The Russians weren't always the ones responsible for the shelling.
What city is this?
Red Liman.
Was he occupied?
Yes.
The city was occupied and then liberated?
Yes.
When?
In early October of last year, we were under occupation for 4 months.
At the beginning of October?
Yes. The assault began at the end of May. I believe it was on May 23rd, if my memory serves me right. Roughly speaking, it was the 1st of June. And by the 3rd or 4th of October, the city was recaptured. 4 months under occupation.
Do you support Russia?
I am neither for Russia nor against Ukraine. What is the current situation? Essentially, Ukraine has been utilized as an anti-Russian entity. Indeed, When the Union fell apart, Ukraine was generally considered a world leader in terms of economy and industry. We had technology, but then they began to pit us against Russia, and economic ties started to deteriorate. Ukraine lost everything, all its technology, its entire economy. Everything collapsed, everything was lost. War broke out, but it was not the fault of the people. They were not the ones who made those decisions.
Did the people decide to start launching missiles at Ukraine?
Prior to this, Donbass had been under bombardment for 8 years.
8 years prior to that, precisely in 2014, the Russian military advanced into Donbass.
Has anyone seen them?
Yes. Shall I show you?
Show me. I know there were volunteers.
Surely. Volunteers. Need extra hands? Were tanks, ZIL vehicles, grads, tornadoes, hurricanes, sunburns, Pinocchios, and the rest, all manned?
Again, where did it all start? In 2013, there was a coup d'etat.
You should have immediately started discussing the coup d'etat. Otherwise, you're just beating around the bush. So it appears that the Russians intervened. Does our maiden, what you refer to as a coup d'etat, give the Russians the right to intervene?
When did they arrive?
At the very beginning of 2014. Gherkin, in Slavyansk?
There were no tanks in Slavyansk.
What did Gherkin drive? A Volga?
There were no Russian tanks.
What was it?
This town is adjacent to Slavyansk, you know?
Volunteers arrived. I'm not sure what Gherkin brought with him, but they entered Slavyansk.
20 people came in.
Whether it was 20 or not, I don't know. I'm referring to the fact that they arrived.
Where did it all begin? It all began with the coup d'etat in 2013.
So you believe that the events at Maidan justified Russia's incursion into Ukrainian territory? First Crimea, then Donbass.
There is also a story regarding Crimea. Crimea is an autonomous republic. According to the constitution, they had the right to remain there.
The all-Ukrainian referendum makes the decision.
Why Ukraine?
It is an autonomous republic within Ukraine. Ukraine is governed by a constitution.
There is also a constitution in Crimea. According to the Crimean constitution, they had such an opportunity.
Who were they?
The Crimeans could have held their own referendum to decide whether to stay within Ukraine or not. They did it.
Can you see clearly?
Not really good.
Can you provide any confirmation for your statement that the Crimeans had the freedom to come and go as they pleased? Armed men in green uniforms just stormed in. They seized control of the buildings, and that was it. And they're portraying this as a referendum. But it's nonsense. It's not a referendum. Especially, I believe, the current government of Crimea was not involved in this at that time.
Maybe.
This is a government overthrow, or if you prefer, a coup d'etat, an armed coup d'etat. What occurred in Crimea was an armed coup d'etat.
Perhaps you're correct. However, regarding Russia,
well, on one hand, it's an armed coup d'etat. On the other hand, it's annexation, seizure, occupation.
Regarding the jurisdiction of Crimea, the debate about what they could or could not do could be lengthy. To my understanding, they amended their constitution in due course. The Constitution of Crimea underwent changes during their independence. Even when they were part of the Soviet Union, they had the opportunity to determine their own fate. They had autonomy. Even within the Soviet Union, they held a special status.
In short, I understood everything. Do you believe that Russia had the right to annex Crimea, had the right to intervene in Donbass?
It's not even a matter of what she had and what she didn't have.
Do you think she did something she wasn't supposed to do?
No, it was a situation where they just had to do it.
Oh, they had to. I understand.
They had to. The lease for Sevastopol was expiring, and no one was planning to renew it.
And when we provided nuclear weapons to Russia, Did they sign any agreements? Think back to the early 90s.
In the early 90s, the situation was so chaotic that the issue of borders was not even brought up.
Was the issue not addressed? The boundaries were defined and mutually acknowledged.
They remained as they were in the Soviet Union. Were the borders different before the Soviet Union was established?
Actually, the Kuban was never part of Ukraine.
No.
No?
Yes, there was a Ukraine before the Soviet Union.
Certainly.
No. In the early years, particularly in the 20s, when all of this was being established, the Soviet Union, these borders, they didn't just pertain to the Ukrainian SSR, but to all the Union republics. They shifted around for quite a while.
So, everything is fine. But what's the problem with Crimea? Is Russia correct in any case?
You know, I witnessed this entire war and everything that came with it firsthand, not on television.
Yes.
In other words, to even slightly support the war. I don't support the war. For me, when all of this began, to be honest, it was a shock. I didn't believe it until the very end. Even now, well, I'm watching a show on some Russian channel online. It's a TV series, right? And then we turn it on, we want to watch this series, and there it is. The meeting where they were deliberating on whether to attack Ukraine. And we were sitting there, looking at each other, wondering, what's happening? Are they serious? What about the next day?
Did you know that mobilization in Donbass started at least 3 days before this meeting was arranged? I learned this from the prisoners when they began to be mobilized. That is, not on the 24th, but on the 21st, they had already assembled there, at the gathering points, where they were issued uniforms and weapons.
It's evident, and it was even before, there were already discussions that the Ukrainian armed forces were present too. They were assembling a strike force with the intention to take down the DPR.
Indeed, there's no proof to support this. Moreover, the Ukrainian military didn't employ substantial force to destroy anything or anyone. The Russians advanced, not just to Bombas, but across all of Ukraine. Okay, I'm inclined to believe that they went to defend Bombas because Ukraine was preparing to attack Bombas aggressively. What does Zaporozhye have to do with this? What does Kharkiv have to do with it? What does Sumy have to do with this? What is the relevance of these cities? Including Kyiv, of course.
I don't know.
Chernikov?
I don't know.
I apologize to those I've forgotten.
I'm not sure, but even in the early days, we had something fly by. Yes, it was Russian aviation.
Well,
it zoomed by. Then, as I remember, they virtually verbatim posted online that due to our volunteer helpers, some sort of command center was found. Our Air Force, our planes, comprehensively covered everything. Nazis, huh? And there's more.
Nazis?
Control points.
Ukrainians are Nazis?
I wouldn't say that.
Why are we being labeled as Nazis on federal channels? They have declared denazification, a war against Nazism.
I can't speak for them.
Why?
I don't know.
I see. Keep talking.
I live in this town.
Yes.
The house that was flown into, supposedly housing some kind of headquarters in the basement, is not far from my house. It's literally a minute's walk away. Just around the corner, and that's the house they hit. I mean, I know for certain there was no headquarters there.
So this was from a Russian airplane?
Yes.
They announced, this is the headquarters, and this is an apartment building?
Yes.
People died?
Yes. A 5-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl.
Released?
Released.
From what?
From the locals.
From life.
At the end of May, we were under siege for 4 days. During those 4 days, it was unclear who was even attacking us. There were small groups, squads.
Didn't small groups of Ukrainians come out first when the Russians began their assault?
However, over there, on the other side from where the attack was originating, a friend informed me that there was a group from the AFU present, even with armored vehicles stationed there.
They're holding.
Yes, something is happening there, on the outskirts of the city, but where the missile landed.
Weren't the Ukrainian armed forces there?
No. I then found myself at the start of the attack. I was strolling down the street, minding my own business. That's it. And literally within 10 minutes, half the street was demolished. Just demolished. There were no AFU units present. They were never in the areas subjected to firing. There was absolutely no one there.
They communicated through their own channels that they were dismantling the AFU.
Yes.
And they were devastating the local population.
We reburied about 500 people.
Did the Russians enter the country in June?
They arrived at the very end of May.
End of May,
the 28th.
Then did the exhumations and reburials begin?
Not immediately.
Processing.
Summer.
When did the Ukrainians arrive again?
The Ukrainians arrived in October, either on the 3rd or 5th. They came at the beginning of October, 6 months ago. That is, I went to work on October 15th, the same day the exhumation work began. The Ukrainian side initiated the process. We have been working on the reburial for a month and a half.
I can't tell you anything about that. Nor can I say anything about the arrivals from the Russian side.
Do you comprehend the actual situation there?
I am certain of one thing. If Russia hadn't intervened, there would be no problems there at all.
You know, we could discuss this at length, but it has already begun. How do we put an end to it?
No, I'm always searching for cause and effect relationships. You know, we're interested in discovering who thinks what. Do the people living there understand that these issues might not even be real? Apparently, they don't. You, for instance, still tend to believe that Ukraine has generally acted inappropriately. This justified Russia's invasion, according to their perspective. Whether it was compelled or not, as you suggest, is debatable. Apologies, but you're the fourth misguided opinion I've encountered today. This refers to the category of inhabitants from either the Donetsk or Luhansk region who persistently assert that we are mistaken about certain aspects there. In a nutshell,
you see, the situation is such that Ukraine has begun distancing itself from Russia, even to its own detriment.
What do you mean they've started? What do you mean they've started? We had a bunch of oligarchs and each government took turns in corruption, not considering how to improve this country. Started it? We did this to ourselves. It's just that, for some reason, you were always proclaiming on your platforms that you were supporting everyone and that generally, everyone was oppressing you and didn't like you, right? You separated yourselves, in fact, from the rest of Ukraine. If they hadn't separated, this separatism wouldn't have occurred. So, yes, this is likely the root cause we should seek in everything. In the people themselves, in their mentality, in the information policy. Russia has recruited 250 bloggers to influence your thoughts. They've established 350 platforms, including Telegram and Facebook, to drive their information agenda. As for us, we only created TV channels such as News 1 and 112, which you also viewed and received information from, either partially or fully confirming what the Russian media reported. So, cause and effect, you need to examine this situation from all angles.
That's the thing. I'm viewing this situation from various perspectives. We began showing interest in these matters much earlier than the 13th year. Not what we're told on TV, but how it actually happens. I work for the railroad. I've seen the freight traffic, where it comes from, where it goes, what kind of freight is being hauled. Why they suddenly began transporting something somewhere, how the factories operate in our Donetsk region, what they manufacture. Generally, what's happening in the world isn't just what you see on TV. There are serious publications out there, not for the mass audience, but rather, for a more elite readership.
right? Seriously, we have the internet at our disposal. You can browse online, read newspapers, research prices for different products, and even check out statistics. I have been interested in political issues, but I have never participated in any political movements, and I never will. I don't engage in politics, it's not my concern at all. But I am interested in it from the perspective of understanding what is happening in the world. We started getting interested in this well before 2015. I'm interested in this. Systematic work was being conducted. Pretty much. But primarily through the collapse of Russia, and subsequently Ukraine, due to their strong economic ties. During the Soviet era, production was dispersed in such a way that no single republic was solely responsible for the production of any given product. In other words, production was distributed across the different republics. It turned out that the engines for passenger airplanes are manufactured in Ukraine, while the fuselages are produced in Russia, and the electronics are made in Belarus. Then they had a disagreement. There was some sort of misunderstanding. The engines weren't functioning, the hulls weren't holding up, and the electronics were failing. Indeed, Ukraine does not have an aviation industry. Russia seems to have managed to establish one, but in Europe, there is Airbus, which had never existed before and perhaps would never have come into existence. A question. And all of this happened long before 2013. Some work was in progress. It's not the fault of the people. I was born and raised in Ukraine. Yes, I identify as Russian, but that doesn't stop me from living and working in Ukraine. I worked and paid my taxes. For the last 2 months of the previous year, I contributed 15,000 in taxes to the budget every month. I won't receive a paycheck, I've been compensated, but I won't see it. Essentially, I've been working for free. I had something calculated, but they didn't pay me. I worked voluntarily because it was needed. For my neighbors, for my city, for the people around me, I performed this work. When we were working at the cemetery, I would head into town and collect litter to keep our town clean. I did everything within my power for my country, for my people. Of course, I don't agree with the verdict, because I haven't done anything wrong to anyone.
I understood the verdict, but I didn't understand the part about Airbus.
Airbus?
No, I understand your point. I can't comprehend why a country like Russia, with its vast resources, abundant land, and skilled population, hasn't been able to fully develop into a prosperous nation in 30 years.
You see, the engines for passenger airplanes were only mastered last year.
But they learned, didn't they?
There are actually very few countries that do this.
Yes, I understand that. But if it took Russia 30 years to learn how to manufacture engines, it's not America's fault.
But it didn't take 30 years. It started after that, of course. This is the essence of putting obstacles in each other's paths. I mean, Russia has managed to overcome, but Ukraine hasn't and probably never will. It has lost its technology and no one will assist it. Well, why create competition for yourself? Okay, let's sell our goods.
What challenges did Russia face? What did it have to deal with?
Yes, I understand that, but it's still the case in Russia. They are establishing new factories, not the old scrap metal processing ones, but new ones where nuclear icebreakers are being constructed. Masurian airplanes, they go to space. Ukraine didn't have it. More accurately, it doesn't have it now, but it once did, and now it doesn't.
We are waiting for you in Russia.
Here are all the nuclear icebreakers together.
I understand. Cities like this.
Why has tension risen between Ukraine and Russia?
We're waiting for you in Russia.
Look at this. Russia has ascended.
The cost of 20 submarine-launched missiles.
I know all that. You don't have to show me. I have relatives in Russia. The way they live there won't be shown on TV.
How do people make payments? People put up with such living conditions. They are a victorious nation and they take great pride in it. As long as the victorious people maintain their pride, they endure conditions like these and continue to take pride in rockets that reach speeds of Mach 2030. Iskanders, of course. Meanwhile, these pillars of greatness are rising among them.
That's Navalny on the recording. No. This was recorded by a regular Russian who was tired of going to the outhouse in minus 20 degrees. It's not Navalny. Trust me, Navalny had a regular toilet. And it's not Navalny.
A large village?
There were houses on the other side, and where there were crops, there were also houses. This ledge is all that remains of the house that once stood here. There was also a house where this yard was constructed.
I'm familiar with the Konstantinovsky district. Truly, the abundance of these videos could lead to fatigue, to the point where we couldn't endure a week-long marathon without pause. Videos are coming from various locations in Russia. And are you trying to tell me that the numbers have increased? Let him ascend, but not with our involvement. That's what happened, and not by firing missiles at us again. It's just that, how did this come about? What's so great about your Russia? Nothing. We could live like the EU, i.e., everyone has their own policies. Do you support the Soviet Union? Argue with each other. Trade with each other, develop joint projects. Why is it crucial to trade with Russia? What's the need for maintaining a friendly relationship with them, and for what cause? What's the objective? Not about friendship. The simplest example, Soviet standards and European standards are entirely distinct. For Ukraine to engage in trade with Europe, it will need to thoroughly restructure its industry. And we will have to rebuild. But it's better than using wooden toilets when it's 20 degrees below zero. Rebuilding is necessary, but what else can we do? We don't have toilets like this. You know, there is. Here we go. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen it in our town. Are we discussing what we possess or what we desire? You suggest that we could be friends, love each other, but I respond, we don't wish to. We wanted to use standard toilets. Thus, we chose Europe over Russia. What's the issue? The fact is, if we were still friends at that time, then everyone would have decent toilets. Well, let's just say yes. Head in that direction. Let them consider you for the job. I have a feeling that they really need you. Take me away. Thank you for the conversation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning.
Hello.
Do you agree to be recorded?
Yes.
Are you a prisoner?
I'm not sure about my current status, but...
You are a prisoner of war.
Yes. I was a prisoner before that.
When were you convicted and for what?
I was tried in 2 courts, in 2007 and in 2009. The verdicts varied: contract killings, murder, and robbery.
Contract killings and murder?
Attempted murder, contract killings.
How many people have you killed?
2.5.
2.5. 2 full ones. 1.
Not completely.
He survived. Why did you choose to become a killer?
I didn't choose to be a killer. I don't abide by the law at all. And when I was on the wanted list, I ended up committing 2 murders.
I contacted Vladimir Osechkin. Vladimir, good afternoon. The prisoner of war claims that he reached out to you and you assisted him. Perhaps he doesn't mind talking to you. You can, if you want.
We reached out to him, and he provided assistance, not just to our prison. There were many like him in the Ulyanovsk region. This occurred when the team arrived, and instantly issues started in all the prisons. Throughout the year, approximately 70 criminal cases were initiated. The reorganization of institutions started somewhere. Previously, there was nothing. And as soon as this team arrived, the trials began.
They began to increase their demands.
They increased their demands, and everyone began working without pay. So I was constantly kept in solitary confinement. I was freed for 3 days. From November 15th to July 24th, I was incarcerated several times for brief periods. 15 days in solitary confinement. This is unlawful.
10 or 15.
15. I stayed there for 45 days, then for another 51. I left for a few days in between.
15 days in solitary confinement.
No, first 45, then 51. And so, in the end, when I spoke to the boss, he said, "You will not be in prison anymore.
The wife responded.
You will no longer be in jail. You will be going to the city of Vladimir, to a maximum security prison." The detectives also told me, "You might be the defendant in the next criminal case under these articles of the Criminal Code," and I made a decision for myself. Then the representatives from the Ministry of Defense arrived. "We need to leave from there, because I have limited options to liberate myself from there, as my prison term there will be indefinitely extended."
Well, okay.
The same people are currently there, in solitary confinement. They are attending some court proceedings. They made an attempt, by the way. One inmate reached out to someone. I can't recall if he got in touch with Osechkin. He recorded the assault. The warden was the one beating him. They posted it on social media. Not social networks, but that's what they're referred to there. TikTok, YouTube. Ultimately, as he was unable to provide proof and had accused the colony's leader, an additional 2.5 years were added to his sentence. He failed to substantiate his claims, and they dealt with him rather severely for his actions. When necessary, the video cameras are switched off. When the prosecutor's office arrives, there is no video footage available. When they're not needed, they're immediately present. When necessary, there is no video evidence. If you defame someone, they impose another prison sentence. I tried to prove something there, but it was futile. It's pointless to fight against the system.
How many people went to war?
Approximately 400 to 500 people left during the year.
Why aren't they accepting Uzbeks?
They are not citizens.
It's not a problem.
There might be a problem now, but not with the defense ministry. The Tajiks and Uzbeks left with Wagner. After that, they only started recruiting Russians.
How many people are with you?
In my case, 85 people had planned to depart, but only 50 did, and 35 declined. Since the Ministry of Defense took too long to intervene, they changed their decisions. I signed up to leave, but they didn't pick us up for another 3 weeks.
How many out of the 50 who left survived?
I'm not sure. We were assigned to Storm Z in Nevsky. I ended up at Nevsky.
Nevsky PMC. We have already encountered people from the Nevsky PMC.
Then we were transferred to the 85th Military Brigade, and that's where I was captured.
How many out of that group of 500 do you think left due to repression? Or let's consider all 400 individuals. Can we claim that these repressions against prisoners compelled them to go to war?
Well, of course, because many. They believe I would prefer to go somewhere far away rather than stay here, because This is always the case. If a person lives comfortably and his life becomes problematic, he will try.
Undoubtedly.
All wars are fought for the sake of someone's freedom. It's always like that. And I fight for freedom.
No.
I'm fighting for freedom.
No.
For the sake of freedom to live on our own land. Everyone defends what's theirs.
What do you stand for?
I am just defending my freedom.
Why did you fight for your freedom? Explain the connection between your freedom and our soldiers to me in a way that I can understand.
So it turns out, I became a soldier myself.
That's right. Simply a misconception.
Wrong.
Why did you become a soldier?
I'm not making excuses for myself.
But you can't.
I became a soldier. I became a soldier for those against whom I fought.
At the very least.
It is generally inappropriate to resort to violence, according to traditional Russian principles.
Yes, that's right.
I picked up a weapon quite early, so to speak.
At first, you killed for money.
Yes, this is already incorrect. Even as I was leaving, my father and I met. I told him that. It appears that I am set to kill. Yet, I say, if God permits, we might manage to avoid killing anyone at all.
No, it doesn't work like that. Well, you know it's funny. Did you cease the hostilities on your own?
No.
You have been captured.
In battle, yes.
Yes, if our soldier was in front of you, you would kill him. It didn't work out, did it? Let me guess. They lobbed grenades at you while you were holed up in some basement.
I attacked.
It's clear. How were you captured?
They completely destroyed our group.
Did they arrive in tanks?
No, we advanced with machine guns against artillery in a minefield.
Did someone get blown up?
Yes. The leader of the group exploded, shooting the rest of them. I didn't know where the locations were. I was captured.
Did he say you can't kill?
He said, "Don't just kill indiscriminately. That is, unless you are in danger."
You can't approach a bishop and say that. Pardon me, I'm off to a distant battle where I might end up harming the innocent. And I only go there to quickly escape the system that consumed me. Hooray! Is that so? This is the condensed version of the concept. Yes.
Greetings, Dmitri.
Greetings, Vladimir. Do you agree to the recording and publication?
Certainly.
I'm interviewing an individual. He mentions that he sent you some sort of plea, but I can't recall from which prison colony. Well, he'll likely discuss it himself now, if.
Thanks, Dmitri, for letting me have the floor.
Hello, Vladimir, my name is Victor. We reached out to you from the IK2 colony regarding a hunger strike among the convicts there. This is happening in the Ulyanovsk region, specifically in Baldin, Bikba. You published an article on this. Concerning the illicit behavior of employees, and the fact that some prisoners in the punishment cell embarked on prolonged hunger strikes. In IR2. For their safety, I cannot disclose the names of the individuals who reached out to you. We have reached out to you. You posted on your Telegram and YouTube channels information stating that prisoners in IK2 are on a mass hunger strike and are cutting their veins.
Yes, it was in the Ulanovska region, the second jail.
Second jail term. Then I found myself in the war, and now I'm with Dmitri. It's just that we touched on this topic during the interview, and we wanted to confirm that we reached out to you.
Listen and tell me, please. For over a year now, We have been discussing the deplorable way in which Russian security forces treat prisoners, and we are addressing the unacceptability of participating in this. If possible, could you explain why you went there?
Dmitry, I was sentenced to 17 years, and this term might never end. I went to war for my own interests.
When did your prison sentence end?
5 years. Yet, it turned out that I never ceased to exit that penal cell, and nothing aided us. I merely departed from there.
Have you ever been subjected to torture or physical abuse in other facilities of the Federal Penitentiary Service in the Ulanovska region?
Specifically for me, no, The Special Forces roughed me up as a precautionary measure during the search.
Did the Special Forces beat you as a preventative measure?
Before I departed, indeed. They arrived and assaulted us. We retreated to the backyard and they took offense to something. We were attacked without any reason. Sometimes they deploy special forces. They don't kill anyone, but they continually taunt us, and the people there are disheartened. Half of the inmates in the punishment cell are serving extra time for disrupting the institutions, and this cycle seems to be endless.
Victor, how long were you held captive?
2 months ago, those who wrote to you started a hunger strike.
You've been in captivity for 2 months now. During this period, did you experience any physical harm, torture, or sexual assault threats? Did something similar happen to you?
I was taken prisoner during the attack. On the first day, the infantry I had fired upon beat me. I understand why they did it. After I was officially taken as a prisoner, no one laid a hand on me anymore. I'm sitting here, waiting.
Indeed, it appears that Ukrainians like you are being captured and transported to Russia, where they are subjected to beatings and torture. However, they are fighting to defend their homeland. Just today, I posted information about a young man who was brutally beaten and tortured in the Black Dolphin. Please tell us briefly about Storm Z. Were you transferred to Storm Z or a different department?
To Nevsky.
To Nevsky. What is Nevsky?
The same unit as Storm Z. Everything is identical.
This is Nevsky PMC. There are already hundreds of them.
I arrived and we were trained. The same restrictions apply. Communication, alcohol, and looting are forbidden. We stayed with instructors, and for the first time, we went to the front line with them. We had instructors who supervised us. Essentially, there were no mobilized individuals among us. There were only convicts there. A team of convicts specifically for assault.
Which way did you go? Where have you been?
At first, I was between Soledar and Bakhmut. We initially went for defensive purposes, meaning we did not participate in attacks at first. Then we were surrounded by enemy troops in Kleshchivka, near Bakhmut. The attacks started there. We were assigned to the intelligence of the 85th Brigade. And in battle, I went into battle with my team.
The task description doesn't provide a transcript for correction.
Do detachments exist? Have you heard of anyone being tortured or shot for refusing to obey an order?
I toured other private military firms, PMFs. Prior to the assault, 40 individuals were sent out, with only 6 making it out alive. They said, "We have been attacking for 3 days, only 6 of us remain, now it's your turn. You will attack until you seize the territory." They couldn't seize it for 3 days, and then we proceeded as well.
Were there any threats made? That if you return or attempt to surrender, they might open fire on you. Did your commander say something like this to you?
We didn't have those kinds of leaders, we had. They would appoint the elders among us, but they themselves didn't want to go there. They stayed far away. Just so you understand, I found myself in a fierce battle. There is no need for any barrier detachments there. We need to utilize artillery there, not manpower, because we couldn't achieve anything there. It seemed pointless being stationed there. My AK-74 was of little use due to the artillery and various other elements at play.
In other words, you were essentially used as cannon fodder, thrown into the line of fire to reveal the firing points of the Ukrainian armed forces, thereby aiding the Russian army in targeting them.
I'm not sure what the plan was, but we traversed a minefield and they fired at us. I know that. I'm not sure. I'm not looking at it now. I didn't have a phone. We were assigned a task, and I didn't even know where to start. We must go forward and carry out the plan. That's all.
Were you sent to the minefields?
Yes, we navigated a minefield, our own minefield, because we had previously laid those mines ourselves.
Yes, it is clear. How many members were in your unit? What was the name of your unit at the Nevsky PMC?
It wasn't named anything specific. We were a battalion, composed of several platoons. Eventually, Nevsky handed us over to the 85th Brigade, a day before the attack. We were informed, "You are now the 85th Brigade, reconnaissance." We hadn't slept for 2 days and were sent to attack with rudimentary weapons. In the morning, we went into battle.
How many of you were in the unit, and how many survived?
My group and I traveled in teams of 3, making 4 groups in total. I just reached my destination. I assumed someone else had already arrived, but no one had. As a result, I was captured, and the rest, I suspect, perished. All of this happened quickly.
When were you called to serve in the colony? And when did you leave it?
The 24th of July this year.
Who came to visit you? Private individuals or the Ministry of Defense?
Ministry of Defense.
Who did you sign a contract with? I'm not sure if it was a contract or an agreement. We signed the documents in Rostov with the Ministry of Defense, it was specified there.
Were you officially assigned to colony number 12 of the Gvzin in the Rostov region?
Yes, something like that did occur. There were 4 names mentioned, including Gvzin number 12. I'm confused. We inked the pardon documents and settled on a pay scale of 40 to 90,000, with 75,000 for warfare.
Have you been pardoned in Russia today or not?
I'm not sure, I hope so. They didn't provide me with anything, no documents. I don't know how the contract will be terminated.
Regarding the payment of salaries, how were your salaries disbursed? Would you like to pay with credit card or cash?
They gave me a credit card, but I never received my paycheck. The last sum of money arrived when the attack began, around 100,000. But I didn't have any opportunity to use it.
When you were already in combat positions, on the front line, do you think you went to this war for nothing? Do you believe it was the right decision to leave the colony and go fight in a foreign country?
I find it difficult, Dmitry, to answer that question.
This is a fascinating question, by the way, because we were just discussing the topic of war and murder. Interestingly, the priest also gave his blessing for the war.
The problem arises when Russian propaganda influences people to perceive alleged enemies in Ukraine. Now, you find yourself in a Ukrainian jail, a captive, but still able to connect with a human rights advocate, who, incidentally,
defended you when you were. You and people like you, in Colony Number 2, Number 10 and in other institutions of the Federal Penitentiary Service of Russia in the Ulanovska region, among others. Where did the prison assault occur? You've mentioned an attack by the Federal Penitentiary Service's Special Forces. It's clear they wouldn't just attack, but also retaliate if met with resistance. Also, what led to your imprisonment, and what were your activities in the colony?
I was an ordinary person.
Have you worked in manufacturing?
No.
In a residential area?
I was in solitary confinement.
In other words, you had many privileges.
No, I simply disagreed with many of the situations that occurred there. I was concerned.
Are you implying that your rank in prison was higher than average? And you followed the thieves' code. You lived by it. How is it then that you claim, I did not support the prison leadership, yet you donned a uniform, took up a machine gun, and fought for those who oppressed you? It's straightforward. I constantly ponder and wish to pose a question. If you insist that you sat there like a true man, and we both understand what being a man signifies in a prison within the Russian zone, how does it make sense to you? You spent many years in prison, you were incarcerated, and then suddenly you picked up a machine gun and went to a country that never harmed you, never tortured you, never wronged you in any way. Or did the Ukrainians do something bad to you before the war?
No, they didn't do anything wrong to me. I understand that from a moral standpoint, I was in the wrong for even going there. Perhaps life has worn me down, Dima. I went there, I was exhausted.
I'm not sermonizing, just seeking clarity. You've faced life's trials and tribulations, and now, you're stuck, correct? I'm not trying to lecture you, and you're not at an age where I need to teach you anything. I just want to understand the mindset of the Russian peasant.
I'll explain. I've been in prison for 18 years. I'm 40 now. I'm just mentally exhausted from sitting there.
You're just worn out from constant mental pressure, right? Expecting another rough visit from the special services. You said you were in a disciplinary isolation cell recently, but what caused your confinement there, in your opinion?
For nothing. Recently, I was informed that I wouldn't be released. They said, if you continue on to prison, there will be more consequences.
Victor, did the administration ever clearly express a disregard for everyone until they agreed to wage war?
I already informed the prosecutor that the head of the institution said, soon, I will be the one preparing these lists for the war. That's what he said, but we realized he was cunning. But
prosecutor?
No, it was the head of the institution, Big Bao, who said it.
The head of an institution named Big Bao?
Yes. There's no need to conceal the fact that such work is being done, and such conditions are being created for people to simply move there.
So, it's fair to say that the Federal Penitentiary Service is intentionally making prison conditions unbearable, pushing inmates to prefer war over staying there, right?
Well, yes.
So, how do you plan on shaping your life? Do you wish to stay confined in Ukraine? Or are you anticipating an exchange?
No, if possible, I want to go home. And then see what happens next.
Home, then.
I don't know.
Who's waiting for you at home? Is there someone you want to say hello to?
They don't watch this channel. My elderly grandmother is waiting for me there. Then there's my ex-wife. I also have a brother. I would like to get home, if possible, of course.
In Ulanovska?
Yes.
Is there anything you would like to say to the Ukrainians who will be watching this video? Do you want to apologize to them for coming to their land armed?
I shouldn't have come here.
That's it. Is that all you have to say to them?
Yeah, well, I'd like to apologize for that.
And what would you like to say to the Russians, the prisoners, men like you who are contemplating their next move? You've seen it yourself. You're being dispatched to the front lines like expendable troops to handle this situation alone.
Well, I would advise those who are there not to come here. Because there is no joy here and they won't find what they are seeking.
Have you seen many individuals like yourself perish in front of you?
Many have perished, but the fact is, some have survived. I'm not in a position to judge anyone. Whoever has the life circumstances that brought them here. However, I feel sympathy for many people who arrived here. I was accompanied by 19-year-olds who hadn't even lived here and didn't fully comprehend where they had ended up.
What about the Ukrainians? Do you sympathize with those who left the zone for Ukraine? And the Ukrainians you seek to destroy on their own soil, who are merely defending their home, their country, their land, their freedom. They don't want to live in a gulag and they don't want to live under Putin. They aspire to live freely. Do you feel sympathy for them? For invading foreign lands and killing the inhabitants?
Dmitri, to be honest.
Vladimir.
Vladimir, to be honest, I hadn't really thought about it. There are already enough problems.
Consider this, ponder over it. I believe it's crucial to learn some lessons.
I simply don't want to lie, knowing you.
You're doing the right thing. Let's agree. When you have some free time, message me and tell me what's going on there.
All right.
Don't worry. No one will punish or harm you for what you said today. I'm always available and thank you so much, Dmitri, for the opportunity to speak, and many thanks to Ukraine for treating prisoners with humanity.
All right, thank you.
May a peaceful sky be above your heads and a swift victory be yours. Let this quagmire end. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
Am I going to get the last one? The extreme one, to be precise.
Why extreme? Why last?
Or perhaps the last one. Or the last one, as the saying goes?
What is the correct way?
I don't know.
So, you really didn't have enough time to comprehend what was happening? Is that the case?
I understand. I just wanted to go home, to be honest.
At what cost?
Poor pricing.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
My name is Dmitri. Do you know me?
I know, yeah.
That's good, I guess. How do you know?
Well, because I'm looking for my loved one.
Him?
Yes.
All right, then. So, you know what I'm going to ask you now.
Yes, I agree.
Hey, Katerina. What's up?
I didn't think I'd ever hear your voice again.
I was wondering if Grandma's okay in there.
Yes.
God forbid. Do we still receive payments while I'm away?
Not in the last month.
How many arrived in total?
140.
All clear. Ekaterina, do you know what you need to do? When this video is released, you must report to the Military Registration and Enlistment Office and identify me as a prisoner of war. Provide evidence that your relative is indeed a captive, so they can officially recognize him as a prisoner of war. For the exchange of prisoners of war, you can also reach out to the Human Rights Commissioner.
I know all this.
Otherwise, I'm fine. That's it. Go ahead, don't worry. I was more concerned about that, about Grandma. You just ensure everything's okay.
I sent anniversary gifts on your behalf.
That's it, if God wills.
Can I ask you a question? What is the discussion about war? What is the discussion about war?
You know,
I'm not interested in politics, right?
Is that the standard phrase everyone uses?
I don't know. I don't have the full truth.
I don't fully understand politics either, let alone know the whole truth about it, but... Of course, I wouldn't want anyone to be in such a situation where their loved ones are dealing with all these issues today.
But that's not what I asked.
But I have already answered that.
Well, yes. What are the neighbors saying at work about the war? Who's winning? Who? Why?
Well, not many people are interested in this. Everyone is more concerned about the fate of their loved ones. And not these games. Who beats who?
Who initiated these games? Well, so that I can discover a bit of truth for myself.
I really don't understand. There are so many now. What does this word mean? Propaganda. It's not propaganda, but rather sick speculation.
Share your thoughts. I'm already intrigued. Who attacked whom?
Propaganda is effective on both sides. I don't know the truth. You don't know the truth. But people shouldn't be fighting, shooting each other, or waging any kind of war in this day and age. That's an undeniable fact.
The fact is undeniable. So, I'll ask again in Russian, don't you speak a strong language? Who attacked whom?
Really? Like from a chronicle?
Let's actually go through the chronicle.
Russia has announced a special operation.
Well, who actually attacked?
Why did Russia attack?
Why did Russia initiate an attack?
If we hadn't attacked, they would have attacked us.
Well, there you go.
Are you okay?
I'm just saying what I heard. That's not my position. I don't think so. I told you earlier, I really didn't want to go through all this either.
What should I go through? If we hadn't attacked you, you would have attacked us.
I mean, why would she want to get into any trouble?
Why do I need this? No, let's approach it differently, but why do I need this? Why am I talking to you right now and a million people are going to watch this? Do you know why?
To find out the truth.
There seems to be a misunderstanding. Please provide a transcript that needs to be corrected.
What? To communicate to people.
What should be conveyed to the masses?
The fact that we attacked you.
No, the fact that you attacked is indisputable and doesn't even need to be discussed. The phrase, "we don't know the whole truth," is already nonsensical.
The way prisoners are treated here, how this operation is generally conducted, what's happening.
Is it an operation or a war?
Everyone refers to it in their own way.
What do you call it?
Was I at war?
Is this a genocide against the Ukrainian people?
This is the genocide of the Slavs.
What does this have to do with the Slavs?
Well, because we're at war with each other.
Who attacked us?
We exist.
Why did you attack?
That's not a question for me.
And why have you come here? Haven't you killed enough people back home?
No, that's enough.
And here they say they don't know the whole truth. So we won't attack you.
What does it depend on ordinary people?
Did you vote for him, or are you saying that you didn't vote?
Are you sure?
I'm sure. 97%.
I didn't vote.
Where did the number 97% come from?
How do I know that? How does everybody know that?
This is your king, this is their king.
See, there you go again.
All right, let's figure this out. Let's engage in a debate.
Let's put down all our weapons together. I'm generally in favor of world peace.
What have you done to promote peace in the world? What is your objection? Did you carry a "I'm for peace" banner?
What will that solve?
I'm asking the question. That's the easy part.
No.
What about world peace?
If necessary, I will do everything that is within my power.
And you're not leaving. Do you know why? Do you know why you don't want to go out? What did you find out?
Useless to everyone.
Because you'll join the ranks of people like this, right? Yeah. So, tell me, comrades, citizens of Russia, if you did not make this choice, and no one did. Now if you ask anyone what I do consistently and regularly, out of all the thousands of prisoners there, perhaps only one or two could actually tell you. The relatives all say the same thing, and everyone repeats the phrase, "Nothing depends on us." Why should we be concerned with your problem? Our presidents change, whether they like it or not. If you're dissatisfied with something, you simply switch to another. If that fails, you substitute it. That's our way. You chose a leader initially, and he remains in authority. I made a mistake.
Well, you don't really have a good choice either.
I must have misunderstood, 76%. And what's the unfortunate choice of what?
In choosing a president,
Why are you dissatisfied with our president?
Yes, there's some kind of propaganda there again.
No, actually, I'm interested.
We watch all channels.
Wait, why is Zelensky considered bad? Did he choose not to be friends with you? Didn't he negotiate? Didn't he compromise? Or what's his problem? Regardless of your words, the facts will remain unchanged. We, unlike you, can talk. Why don't you like my president? I'll ask another question later, I'm really interested. Of course, it's intriguing, even he is curious as to why my president doesn't meet your approval.
Perhaps he is a poor politician?
But she said it herself, you were faced with a terrible choice. That statement is based on logical conclusions. I want to know the details. Why is my president?
as a politician, I believe he failed. That's just my personal opinion. It may not align with your perception.
In what ways did he fail as a politician? Well, what exactly, in what actions?
A lot of things.
Could you please specify what exactly you want me to list?
Well, also about mobilization.
What kind of mobilization? They're sending prisoners to war, doesn't that concern you? How many such prisoners are there? So many.
30%.
30% of the prisoners, including murderers and rapists, are sent to war and then set free. Doesn't this bother you?
That's not accurate. Not all articles are permitted to be published.
Oops. She walks on thin ice, and who doesn't get saved?
Terrorists, rapists.
There are murderers here.
Yes, there are no rapists.
They also capture rapists. There were rapists held captive here. Do you know who else is being freed? There is a man in custody who initially drowned his daughter. He lived with her in a barn for 2 weeks, then he killed her, burned her body, and disposed of it. Is this normal, man?
Of course not.
Is that unusual? But he was released. My child, who is 7 years old.
Well, it's just that I came across a certain list on the internet.
Well, yes, that implies they forgot to include something. Here he is now, sitting, his cellmates are no better. And what can you say about mobilization? Do you know of another person who, at the age of 17, got drunk and harmed others? He knows him. Such a typical warrior. What about mobilization? Isn't there a need for mobilization in our country? If you hadn't initiated the attack, this situation wouldn't have existed. What is mobilization? Zelensky's policy is flawed due to mobilization. Can you elaborate on the mobilization? Let me extract the next piece of information from the prisoners.
I don't like him.
You don't like the man? I agree, it's subjective, no doubt, but is it normal for a czar who has been in power for 28 years, and a former FSB officer?
No.
What's wrong with him?
I didn't vote for him. I can't speak for him.
Yes, and now consider the key point. You didn't vote for him and can't voice your opinion, yet for some reason, you are interested in my president. You are interested in our country. Are you interested in our domestic politics? What does it matter to you who we elect as president here? We're electing a high school student president tomorrow. Why does it matter to you?
I don't watch TV. I'm not informed about politics.
Indeed, I don't know the entire truth.
That's all.
As per tradition, in our country, a prisoner of war speaks to his compatriots. You mentioned this briefly when you spoke with Vladimir Osechkin, but this is the concluding part of our discussion.
Well, what can I say? Everyone has their own mind to think with. It's tough out here. The fact that I've survived is already a significant achievement, at least for me. That's it. It's highly likely that you'll meet your end here if you come. So think about what you're doing.
Take the black bags. Why don't you remove the bodies?
I don't know. I've seen a lot of dead bodies.
How many dead bodies have you seen?
Many.
How are you?
There are bodies lying in the fields.
How many? 1, 2, 3?
I saw 3 or 4 while I was walking.
Feeble, lacking willpower. Thank you all.
Do you want to join the exchange? Yes. Actually, we create such videos to transport you to a different place. Shall we chat? Yes. What's your name? Alexander Alexandrovich Abron, born on June 3, 1983. And where are you from? The city of Yasinovataya, Donetsk region. Yasinovataya, Donetsk region. Please tell us about your life. I was born and raised in the city of Yasinovataya. I am divorced. I have a secondary technical education. I was employed at Ukrtelecom. Very interesting. What did you do to get convicted? I am a serviceman of the Donetsk People's Republic. I was conscripted into service. Have you ever lived in a territory under occupation? Yes. I haven't traveled anywhere since 2014. Were you called up in 2019? Yes. They took me towards Avdiivka on September 11th last year. Have you been in conflict since 2019? I was a communications officer. Just this? Yes. When the war began, I was already in position. Did you establish communication? Yes, I did this. So you're the person who is aware of all the negotiations and everything. Everything that transpired passed through you. Yes. Have the representatives of the SBU spoken with you? I was apprehended by the SBU. How were you caught? We were transitioning from one position to another. The bombardment began. That's how I was taken prisoner. What happened? I'm lost. By the way, do you willingly agree to the recording and publication of this video? Yeah. Now, I want everyone to understand how it happened that you got lost. Were you in some sort of location? Yes, it was a landing. How many of you were there?
There were 8 men there. My task was to ensure communication.
They were lightly armed, correct? They had machine guns, meaning there were no tanks or anything else, right?
No.
And the intense bombardment began.
Yes, there was intense gunfire. I was trapped right there. However, I ran into the SBU officers who were present.
SBU military personnel.
Yes, everything was peaceful, and naturally, I gave in.
I'm sorry, but I seem to be understanding.
258, Part 1.
Tell me what it is.
This refers to involvement in organizing terrorism. And Article 260, Part 2, pertains to illegal armed groups.
Okay. Did you plead guilty?
Yes, I admitted my guilt.
So you don't have any questions?
No, of course not.
Of course not. What is the duration?
13 years.
Do you think you have a chance for parole or pardon?
I don't think about it.
Did you fight for a cause in 2019, or because you had no other options?
I was then called up.
And what if you disagreed?
I don't know. I have no idea.
You went because you had no other choice, right?
Indeed, yes. I have been living there since 2014, and I knew that I would continue to live there. However, I wasn't certain that Ukraine would be able to bounce back.
Were you detained with your phone? You were using your phone, weren't you?
Yes.
What was so interesting on your phone? I mean, photos and such.
Nothing interesting.
What has changed for you positively or negatively since the year 2014?
The war started in 2014, which was the negative aspect. However, I didn't see anything positive.
Why did the war start?
I can't answer the question. Why did the war start? Because opinions on this matter may vary.
We've always had different opinions.
This is a child's answer, one might say.
Yeah.
What I'm telling you isn't merely an opinion. The truth is, there was no time to comprehend and reflect on it. But the reality is, the war has begun.
Do you believe that if the Russians hadn't provoked and assisted local collaborators and separatists, would anything have transpired? Without Russian interference.
What if Russia hadn't helped?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Helped is a somewhat weak word, I believe.
I don't think so. Well, how else could it have worked?
So if Russia hadn't intervened, there would have been no bombing in Donbass, correct?
Certainly.
Like this,
For example, I'd carry on with life as usual.
I see. Well, in that case, reach out to the Russian party. They are definitely monitoring these videos, trust me.
I'm Alexander Alexandrovich Abron, born June 3, 1983, applying for an exchange. I hail from Yasinovitaya, Donetsk region. 600th Territorial Battalion, Company Command. I'm a communications officer. If you watch these videos and, as you say, remember your people. Whether there will be any progress on this case, only time will tell.
If you are not evacuated, then what? What value do their words about protecting the inhabitants of Donbass hold then?
That's zero. I haven't received any assistance from them in a year, despite having already applied for an exchange. If they don't come for me and there's no action from their side, then that's just nothing. When I was recruited, they told me that they never leave their own behind and so forth. Well, I'm still alive.
A letter is being written to the lawyer.
Let's see how it unfolds. I'll tell you one thing that troubled me the most when I heard they were abusing, tormenting, and all sorts of things. Here I am, alive and unscathed.
I didn't even ask you that.
I want to say it myself. I stand for justice. To me, justice constitutes 80% of my life. When I was captured, I was not harmed. I have been treated fairly for the entire duration of my stay here. And the SBU. Nobody hit or tortured me. Although, I thought they would make me a suicide bomber.
And some kind of gruesome death, huh?
Indeed, it was a tragic death, but I speak this from the depths of my heart, as it is. From the 11th, when I was caught, until today, I've neither been beaten nor gone hungry. But they told it in a completely different way.
Who told you that?
Deputy commanders for political affairs. This was reported by those who claimed to have been held captive, alleging that they were subjected to beatings and other forms of mistreatment. But I'm speaking about myself now. I've experienced a lot and I've emerged completely unscathed.
You're speaking about yourself, and it's vital for us to shed light on this topic, now that we've raised it.
Sure.
Who is disseminating this information and for what purpose?
As I understand it, this is to spread misinformation, to foster resentment towards the enemy. A pointless and futile task, that's my view.
All of this should lead you to the conclusion that you cannot give up.
To prevent us from seeing the truth. How things really are, right? Suppose I encountered the truth. I observed it, I felt that truth. Now, that truth is part of my life.
No Nazis?
I haven't seen them yet.
No one has seen them, regardless of whom I speak with.
I haven't seen anyone being mutilated or beaten. I'm still in one piece. To put it in my own words, it's more about intimidating a person, instilling fear, and such things. Once again, this is to ensure that a person doesn't give up the moment they have the opportunity to do so. To destroy oneself or to drag someone else down with him.
Give up and survive. We always yearn for life. Isn't this idea familiar to you? You can confidently write there that you wish to surrender. They'll guide you through the entire process. Preserve your life and refrain from harming others. To me, it seems like a wise decision. Alexander Petrovich Kharlamov?
Yes.
What is your date of birth?
October 23rd, 1997.
Where are you from?
Volnovakha.
You joined an unlawful militant group. You were at a checkpoint.
Yes.
Then you decided to put an end to the entire saga. And how did you end up in the hands of Ukrainian justice?
I violated the law. I committed theft. That's why I ended up here. I was found guilty and am now serving my sentence here.
Initially, you wanted to return there.
Yeah, but then I changed my mind because I don't need it.
Can I publish this great story?
Please.
How old were you then?
14 or 15.
Did you face a hurdle?
Yes.
And now?
25. Yes, I didn't realize it at that time. It gradually dawned on me that this was wrong.
Everyone can make a mistake. And where is your family?
My family is there, but I couldn't do anything in that situation.
That's understandable. But you see, even if your family is there, you still don't want to go back there.
No. Because I know it won't end well.
I assume you don't strongly support Russia's aggression.
No. Watching the news? Yes.
Do you see what they're doing?
Ma'am.
If you wish, you can add something of your own.
I would like to wish the Ukrainians good luck. I implore the Russians to withdraw. Return to your own land. You have simply arrived in the wrong place.
I forgot to ask you how you got there. You first approached that roadblock, then you bypassed it.
Before the checkpoint, I was tried in Volnovakha for metal theft, under Article 185, Part 2. I was sentenced to 3 years.
Were you condemned by the occupation authorities or by our Ukrainian authorities?
Yes, I was convicted by a Ukrainian court. I was sent to a school for social rehabilitation.
Yes. Instead of serving your sentence, you were sent to school.
Yes.
It's fine.
It so happened that the Cossacks came to us and inquired whether we would leave or not. The teachers and the principal were outraged. It led to a scandal, a total chaos.
Cossacks? Understood, yes.
It all started when 30 people, including myself, managed to escape. We ended up at a checkpoint. After passing the checkpoint, I abandoned everything and fled.
Did you run away to Ukraine?
Yes. I spent some time in Volnovakha, my hometown. Then we relocated to Mariupol. They approached me, started blaming me, claiming that they knew I was present there. I admitted, did not argue with them, and openly declared that I was guilty. I was found guilty in Volnovakha and given a 2-year probationary sentence after collaborating with the police. My case was later moved to Mariupol. I was required to report for 2 years, but due to a violation of terms, it was reduced to a year. For about a year, and then he stopped.
Then you were convicted of grand theft auto.
Exactly.
Can I inquire about something personal? After serving your term, you'll be freed. How much longer do you have to serve?
2.5.
For 2.5 years. Are you going to abide by the law or not?
I believe so. Since we've repeatedly made the same mistakes, we should, as the saying goes, live normally.
Thank you. What is your name?
Gleb Vladimirovich Manakov.
What is your date of birth?
May 16, 1993.
Where are you from?
Crimea, the city of Yalta.
Crimea, the city of Yalta.
Arrested in Lysychansk City, Luhansk region.
City of Lysychansk. Do you want to go to the exchange?
Yes.
I see. So, tell me what you're in here for and what's the sentence?
Punishment?
Yes.
12 years. 12 years. For what? Article 111. Part 1. Traitor to the homeland.
It's clear. What were you accused of?
Charged by verdict?
Yes.
Based on the court's verdict and conclusion. I communicated with individuals who are representatives of the FSB, to whom I provided information regarding the locations where military forces were stationed.
Of the Ukrainian armed forces.
Of the armed forces of Ukraine.
Do you identify yourself as Ukrainian?
Nationality or faith? I am Georgian by nationality.
And your beliefs?
Beliefs? I am not unfamiliar with this country.
Citizenship?
Yes. But my passport has expired.
Okay. So, is this a fictional story then?
Of course. You doubt my words. Hence I can't change your mind. Especially after your use of words like allegedly and probably.
Because that's what it says.
There you have it.
No, I'm the one saying, supposedly, likely.
You have my phone number. If anyone is interested in the truth, I won't debate whether I'm right or wrong. I've served my time. Now we're moving towards what I need. Essentially, I'll still be free. I'm not interested in anything else, but just verify the geolocation of my phone from the 13th. You will be surprised to find that on the 14th, I was at the Lysychansk City Police Department. I did not leave the city of Lysychansk or the Department of Internal Affairs in this city. Therefore, all correspondence dated the 14th, 15th, and 16th was not conducted by me or on my behalf. They just led me to my 19th floor apartment, where they recorded my arrest as this legal process began. After being in custody for 6 days, I was only brought forward on the 19th day. There's a video that documents my arrest. Despite what it may seem, I was not handcuffed. I simply had my hands behind my back while they aimed automatic rifles at me.
I understand you and what you are talking about.
Anyway, it was just as I'm telling you. It's all done for a purpose.
But here, from the 15th to the 16th.
From the 15th to the 16th, they allegedly started tracking me. Thus, I was supposed to relay the most recent data. It's about how I pointed out the location between the clinic and the market that was targeted. But the shell didn't reach it. Then I was supposed to traverse the city, collect information and relay it to Andre, but I didn't have the opportunity to pass it on because I was apprehended.
Yeah, that's right.
The SBU and everyone else. I mean, that was the version.
Did you say you were detained on the 19th?
Let me rephrase it.
That is,
there's a man who is currently in prison. There are many others in the Dnipropetrovsk prison who shared a cell with me. People, like me, who know that I was incarcerated on the 13th.
Okay.
There are individuals who are aware of this entire situation. There are individuals who can corroborate all of this.
You arrived here before you started running your business.
I was stopped at a checkpoint near Artyomsk.
Okay.
I was detained in Lysychansk. On my way to Artemisк from Lysychansk, I was held up at a checkpoint at the intersection leading into Artemisк. A family with a small child was in one car, and I was traveling with a companion in the second car. I was arrested precisely in the direction of Artemisк. I was transported to Artyomsk, where I spent the night in a basement. In the morning, officers from the SBU collected me and took me to Lysychansk. After which I did not leave the place, meaning, I was arrested on the 13th. Everything else was created right before my eyes. It was just explained to me there that it would be better to go along with it now.
But you signed the agreement.
Of course, but the reality is that I got what I got. Yes, they sentenced me to 12 years, and they explained why this deal was necessary. Either way, I will eventually be free. But you have the chance to free the soldiers who are currently held captive at my expense. In other words, they made it clear to me from the start that I was being used as a bargaining chip.
I see.
It's unclear when that will happen.
Why exactly were you detained?
Then practically no one was left in Lysychansk.
Was there any particular reason, correspondence, or comments on social media?
There were comments on social media. Remarks about my grandmother. This is not a fabrication. This is how it transpired. She passed away. Indeed, I have voiced many opinions about as they say, beloved country. And therefore,
You logged into TikTok and made several statements. What exactly did you say?
I spoke about the necessity of battling in the fields. We have already discussed this topic.
I'm just saying that I didn't follow the verdict at the time. I thought the verdict encapsulated the entire situation.
No, this verdict is just a single case and a single incident. There's nothing more to it.
Yes, and I understood that you expressed your thoughts on TikTok, discussing various topics. I can even summarize for you what you said.
In essence, if we had taken the route that you and I are currently following, they would never have been able to accuse me under Article 111.
No, why not?
In that moment in April,
They might have deduced and stated that you voiced your opposition to Ukraine on social media. This opposition was triggered when an AFU tank was positioned near your grandmother's home, followed by a bomb attack that led to her demise. Understandably, this incident caused you distress.
I was angry.
Yes, and you began to voice your opinions on social media, stating as you did in our last conversation, that if one wants to fight, they should do it in an open field.
I specifically addressed the fact that civilians are the victims in any war. Yes, I understand that there must be casualties, but when, generally speaking, only civilians are dying.
It's not just civilians who are dying.
Everyone dies, everyone dies. But remember the last time when you and I were focused on the fact that we were battling our adversaries using such strategies, essentially taking cover behind civilians.
No, there are simply no alternatives. If they have been bombarding our positions from residential areas, from civilian houses, using them as shields since 2014, we are left with no other choices. We cannot just stand in an open field and say, go ahead and fire.
I simply believe that a person who refuses to degrade themselves or stoop to the level of an opponent they despise and disrespect should behave more nobly.
You still wouldn't provide another option.
I'm not a military strategist, so I can't offer any suggestions here.
Me too, that's why I think so.
And this is just my opinion, nothing more.
Haven't you lived in Russia for a long time?
From the age of 14.
Did you go to Russia?
No, I've been living in Crimea since 2010 and have never left.
But Crimea is.
In Crimea. However, Crimea has since come under Russian jurisdiction. So, what I mean is, Crimea is ours, it's Ukrainian, but it's under Russian occupation.
Did you live there?
I only went to Kyiv in 2008 because my brother had a law firm there. However, his business failed and he also relocated to Crimea. I then returned to Crimea and have continued to live there ever since.
Overall, it's quite a sad tale, isn't it? So, did you move to Russia after that?
I resided in Crimea, that remained constant. However, I traveled to various cities for work. I stayed in rented apartments in those places. Whenever I needed a break or a place to stay, I would, of course, return to Crimea, and in this way, I traversed across Russia. The only exception was Sakhalin, which is on the border with Japan.
Can this be considered a tour?
Yes, it was a challenge. In essence, I was confronting the state itself, specifically the FSB department that handles such matters.
Okay, 2 minutes. Introduce yourself.
Gleb Vladimirovich Manakov.
Date of birth?
May 16, 1993.
Where are you from?
I was born and raised in Yalta, Crimea, and most recently, I lived and worked in Lysychansk, Luhansk Oblast.
In this verdict, your phone number is documented, your email is documented, and it is recorded that you coordinated the arrival of artillery, as well as disclosed the positions of the Ukrainian troops.
There's a verdict.
The judgment is final, encompassing all the necessary details.
I'm just not confirming or denying anything.
I don't wish to ask anything. I don't need anything. Reach out to Russia so they can retrieve you if you desire an exchange.
I don't want to go to jail.
How many years?
12 years for treason against the homeland.
Do you want to leave this place?
I, of course, want to because for me it's primarily about freedom.
Okay. If they're interested in that option, I hope they'll choose you.